Welcome to another episode of Obscured Reality. Join your hosts, Mark and Stephanie, as they take you through a journey of the extraordinary, bizarre, and often frightening world of the unknown. Explore topics of the paranormal, UFOs, alien abduction, lost civilizations, mythical monsters, and other unexplained mysteries. Come along with us as we transcend into another dimension of obscured reality.
Welcome back to Obscured Reality. Stevie and Mark back with you. Guys, we got a good one tonight. You know it. It's the infamous Flight 19. Have you heard of Flight 19, Stephanie?
There's a lot of flights. Necessarily don't remember their numbers,
Oh, okay. A Navy Flight 19.
but no.
And that narrows it down. Yeah. Okay, you guys heard of this. This is an event that happened December 5th, 1945. There's a lot of mystery surrounding this, if y'all know out there. We're going to get into it. Let's begin. So Flight 19, this was a designation of a group of 5 General Motors TBM Avenger torpedo bombers. They were on a routine navigation.
Roll through that again 5 times fast. Holy crap.
General
okay.
Motors TBM Avenger torpedo bombers. General Motors TBM Avenger torpedo. I'm done. Bombers.
Yep. Okay.
So they were on a routine navigation and combat training exercise. Yes, they were. And let's take a look at a picture. Let's see what kind of plane we're talking about. What
Okay.
do these amazing 5th gen fighters look like? Well, they look like that.
That's
Those
exactly
are
what
the
I was
Avengers.
expecting.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
So those are the Avenger planes. So U.S. Marine captains Edward Joseph Powers and George Williams Stivers, U.S. Marine Second Lieutenant, Forrest James Gerber, and USN Ensign Joseph Tipton Bossy. These are all the guys that were flying these planes. There was 5 of them. So we'll hear one of them. A few of them come up, but I believe mainly Powers. Captain Edward Joseph Powers. So they disappeared over. You want to guess where they disappeared?
Their Bermuda Triangle.
Please.
No. When I hear Navy plane and
yeah. Well,
just where my mind automatically defaults to as mainly a joke, but
I get it. Well,
Jesus, cat. Okay, sorry.
the five of these aircraft disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh shit!
After losing contact during a United States Navy overwater navigation training flight from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Well, we all know that's right next to the Bermuda Triangle. All right. So a Martin PBM Mariner flying boat that subsequently launched from Naval Air Station Banana River was sent to search for Flight 19 when it disappeared. And we'll get into the story. I'm just giving you a brief background. So all 14 naval aviators on Flight 19 were lost. But guess what? All 13 crew members of that Martin PBM Mariner flying boat that was sent out to search for them were lost as well. Now that's interesting. Let's see what happened. What
I have
you
questions.
thinking there?
I have questions.
Yeah. What question do you have already? Let's see.
So, what was the navigational instruments on both the plane and the boat like back in the day? Were they more on the magnetic scale? Were they did they have satellite beacons? Did they have any type of tracking like that? Because I can understand why things would get lost out there. It is technically the Atlantic, so it is known for.
Well, it is the Atlantic, yeah.
I know. So it's a harsh water, a body of water.
Well, it's a good thing they're flying.
The boat.
What boat?
The boat. You said there. Wasn't there a boat that went out to search for them? And
no.
Okay.
No, ma'am. a Martin PBM Mariner flying boat.
Oh,
Keyword
okay, flying
Here,
boat. So
let's look at a picture. Here's what the Mariner flying boat
is it
looks
one of
like.
the? Oh,
There you go.
I was expecting a plane with like the fucking
Pontoons?
yeah.
Like the ones on the wings there?
Yeah, but I was expecting a more like on the bottom of the plane. My bad. But yeah, so I mean,
Whoa.
okay, rough waters,
Yeah.
but still, I mean, if it tried to land on the water or get close to the water and something bad happened because there was like a
Well, the
bad
main of
winds, I don't know. I just want to know more about the navigational systems of both
yeah.
of them.
Well, something tells me like if we continue with the story, we might find a little bit out about that.
Okay, good. Well, you asked if I had questions and I answered your question.
I think we
You
will.
think?
We're gonna we'll get into a little bit of what
All
was
right,
on
so
board.
scold me and then say I think. I get it. All right.
We'll get into a little bit of the navigation.
Okay.
No, I don't think there was satellite GPS navigation
So,
back
I mean,
then.
very easy to get lost.
Well, yeah, but we'll get into the story. We'll see a lot here.
Okay. Just come on. Don't leave me hanging.
You got to remember, I mean, these guys do this all the time. Now, they were training, these guys were newer, which we'll get into, but I mean, they used to flying over water, aircraft carriers, all that type of stuff. I mean, they flew out way out in the Pacific. I mean, and they got to get back to a little aircraft carrier, So, yeah, I don't know.
Well, okay. Go ahead. I have things to say, but go ahead because you're probably going to say it anyways.
We might. So, yeah, that Martin PBM, that flying boat that was sent out, disappeared as well. And it went out to search for them. So they had already been out quite some time, right? So, well, let's see. So a report by Navy investigators concluded that flight leader Lieutenant Charles Taylor mistook small islands offshore for the Florida Keys after his compasses stopped working, resulting in the flight heading over open sea and away from land. The report was later amended by the Navy to read cause unknown to avoid blaming Taylor for the loss of 5 aircraft and 14 men. The report attributed the loss of the PBM search aircraft to an explosion in midair while searching for the flight. Now we'll get some more into the details and maybe get some of these questions answered because just the opening there kind of leads off with more questions than answers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to find out. So the flight leader, is U.S. Navy Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, had about 2,500 flying hours, 2,500, mostly in aircraft of this type, while his trainee pilots each had 300 total and 60 flight hours in the Avenger. So I guess 300 totals decent if that's for one person. I mean, you got to remember,
I do believe isn't much because I do believe you have to have 200 hours clocked to get your pilot's license.
Yeah,
At least that's what it is currently. Well,
yeah,
that's
I
what
don't
it is
know,
currently,
sure
so I don't know
different.
back then.
Yeah, I'm sure it was different, but
Still,
I'm just saying,
based on today's standards, that's still not much. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
I'm just saying in general, I think 300 is probably, it's a decent amount. They're trainees anyways, but if you think about it, we think of...
But 60 hours in that particular style of plane, that's more important than just the 300.
Well, what I'm saying is, you don't go up in a plane like that and fly for 8 hours of your workday. It's impossible, right? You got to land, refuel, all that. So those hours, it's a bit of hours, but yeah, it's low. So Taylor had completed a combat tour in the Pacific Theater as a torpedo bomber pilot on the aircraft carrier USS Hancock and had recently arrived from NAS Miami, where he had also been a VTB instructor, torpedo bombing plane. So yeah, he's seen some stuff. He's got some hours. He's been an instructor. So each plane was fully fueled, and during pre-flight checks, it was discovered they were all missing clocks. Okay. Well, navigation of the route was intended to teach dead reckoning principles, which involves calculating, among other things, elapsed time. So they're all missing clocks. And they're flying out in the middle of the ocean with nothing to look at to give them any idea where they're at. So they need the clocks, but they happen to be missing the clocks. Something tells me the
I
clocks
was
had
actually
been
going to
missing.
say that. I was like, didn't they do like physical calculations back then? I know that like pilots still have to do physical calculation now, but I would assume it would be much more like heavier. But yeah, so you just answered like
Yeah, I
my
think it'd
own
be
internal
more.
question. Like,
I think it'd
don't they?
definitely be more difficult back then.
Especially without a
Because they don't
clock.
have. Yeah, you don't have all the any of the other help in the cockpit.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
The electronics and stuff.
And then you'd have to be doing all that over a war zone as well. Like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
that's that's really impressive. Not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm. Gotta do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. So they were all missing clocks. Navigation of the route was intended to teach dead reckoning, so we went over that. The apparent lack of timekeeping equipment was not a cause for concern. As it was assumed each man had his own watch. Oh, okay. Well, don't know how much that matters unless all of their watches are synced up really well. Takeoff was scheduled for 1:45 p.m. local time, but the late arrival of Taylor delayed departure until 2:10 p.m. The weather at NAS Fort Lauderdale was described as favorable, sea state moderate to rough. Okay. I guess the air is favorable. I wouldn't say moderate to rough seas is favorable, but for a plane flight,
That
the
sounds
ocean doesn't
windy.
really, yeah, the ocean really doesn't matter. But then again, it kind of does because that indicates wind.
Wind. Yes.
So Taylor was supervising the mission, and a trainee pilot had the role of leader out front. Ooh, what a title! So you're going to be a leader out front. I can't even tell if you're smiling. You're blurred.
So
What's she
I'm
doing over there?
smirking because essentially I hear that they want a trainee to take point. Okay, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
good. I mean, you got to train.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the
But it's just there's all the little this and that's just are adding
Mhm.
up.
And that's the thing I think we really see in this is,
Mm.
well, is it really that big of a surprise? They got,
No,
well, lost at sea?
no.
I mean, we're already seeing the first paragraph of the story. Red flag, red flag, red flag.
It's like my dating
know.
history, just red flags.
Oh, yeah, you heard it here first, guys. Obscured realities. Don't date Stephanie.
I mean, no one can date me right now, so, or ever.
Well, so that's just mind over matter. The exercise involved 3 legs, with the flight having flown 4. The fourth being returning to NAS Fort Lauderdale after reaching the Florida coast. So after takeoff, they flew on heading 091 degrees, so basically almost due east.
Mm.
So due east from Florida is water, all water, right? After takeoff, they flew on heading so due east for 56 nautical miles. So that's about 64 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Until reaching Hens and Chickens Shoals, commonly called Chicken Rocks, where low-level bombing practice was carried out. The flight was to continue on that heading for another 67 or nautical miles or 77 miles before turning onto a course of 346 degrees for 73 nautical
So I'm going to
miles.
assume that's more west.
I am not 90, 180. I think it's going to be more east. I
Because if
don't
91
fucking know.
was east, wouldn't like 367 be, I don't know.
Well,
Maybe
what
northwest? I don't know.
double 90, you get a 180. So you're going this way, you do a 180, you're going that way. 364. I don't know. Well, we'll see. So they were going due east basically, and then they switched to this other heading of 346 degrees. So they were in the process of overflying Grand Bahama Island. The next scheduled turn was to a heading of 241 degrees to fly 120 nautical miles, at the end of which the exercise was completed, and the Avengers would turn left to then return to NAS Fort Lauderdale. Okay, so this clearly takes them
Places.
way too far over the ocean.
Mhm.
Not way too far. I mean, it's
Pretty
normal
far.
for them.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
it's
normal
far.
for
Yeah.
them, though. Clearly, those
Mhm.
planes get good mileage. They're 100 miles this way, 200. Jesus.
Sure
I,
better than
I'm,
my
I'm,
car.
I'm really surprised on an airplane like that. But radio conversations between the pilots were overheard by the base and other aircraft in the area. The practice bombing operation is known to have been carried out because at 1500, a pilot requested and was given permission to drop his last bomb. So that's about 3 p.m.
Mm-hmm. Wait,
40 minutes.
what
40
was it?
minutes. Huh?
What 100?
15.
15?
Yeah, it's about 3 p.m.
Yeah.
So 40 minutes later, another flight instructor, Lieutenant Robert F. Cox, in a FT-74, who was forming up with his group of students for the same mission, received an unidentified transmission. So now we have another group that's heading out to do the same
The same
training mission
thing.
they did, but
Yeah.
obviously much later. Probably
40 minutes.
estimated to be when these guys are on their return trip.
Mhm.
This new group's going out.
Mm-hmm.
An unidentified crew member asked Powers, one of the students, for his compass reading. Powers replied, "I don't know where we are. We must have got lost after the last run," is what Cox transmitted. He says, "This is FT-74. Plane or boat calling Powers, please identify yourself so someone can help you." The response after a few moments was a request from the others in the flight for suggestions. FT-74 tried again, and a man identified as FT-28, which was Taylor, came on. FT-28, this is FT-74, what's your trouble? Both of my compasses are out, Taylor replied. So now you have a plane that has two compasses, right? And neither of them work. And I am trying to find Fort Lauderdale. I'm over land, but it's broken. I am sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down, and I don't know how to get to Fort Lauderdale. FT-74 informed the NAS that aircraft were lost, then advised Taylor to put the sun on his port wing and fly north up the coast to Fort Lauderdale. So the port wing, if you're flying north, and
Would
we
be
already
right
know it's after
side?
3 p.m., that should be
left.
your left,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So here he's
Port
telling
bow.
them
Yeah.
from however far away, basically put the sun on your left, head
Mhm.
north. That obviously will be north. So base operations then asked if the flight leader's aircraft was equipped with a standard YG or IFF transmitter, which could be used to triangulate the flight's position, but the message was not acknowledged by FT-28. Later, he would indicate that his transmitter was activated. Instead, at 4:45 p.m., FT-28 radioed, "We are heading 030 degrees for 45 minutes. Then we will fly north to make sure we are not over the Gulf of Mexico." During this time, no bearings could be made on the flight, and IFF could not be picked up. Taylor was told to broadcast on 4805 kilohertz. This order was not acknowledged, so he was asked to switch to 3000 kilohertz, the search and rescue frequency. Taylor replied, "I cannot switch frequencies. I must keep my planes intact." So if he switches frequencies, obviously he won't be in communication with the other planes right there.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I don't know. I mean, if he's out in front and they're trailing him, there shouldn't be an issue unless they were in bad weather.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly,
Cloudy.
you'd be talking fog or clouds, and that high. Who knows how high they were, but they probably were high enough for clouds. So at 4:56 p.m., Taylor was again asked to turn on his transmitter for YG if he had one. He did not acknowledge, but a few minutes later, advised his flight change course to 090 degrees due east for 10 minutes. Okay, so here these guys are going whichever way they're going, and then the head guy here says, "Let's go due east for 10 minutes." So if you're out there, you, why would you want to go due east? You know, due north is going to get you to land, but you also know if you go due east and you happen to have somehow now be on the other side of Florida, on the east side, you'll never hit it.
Right.
You go north, you're hitting land, period.
I guess he probably assumed that he was over the Gulf and went to go due
Right.
east to hit the Gulf side of
Yeah.
Florida. That's what I would assume.
Same here. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking.
Mm.
So about the same time, someone in the flight said, "Damn it, if we could just fly west, we would get home. Head west, damn it." Interesting. So someone else in the group
Thinks that
is
they're on
saying,
the east side of Florida
"Uh
already.
huh, possibly."
And that the Keys was actually probably Bahamas or something like that, or part of the Virgin Islands of some sorts. I don't know which one's where, but I'm
Yeah,
assuming it would be one of the outlying islands like that,
yeah,
or maybe just tiny little spits of uninhabited
right.
shit. Who knows?
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna find out. I know that's in
Oh,
here. I don't know off
cool,
the top of my head, but
cool.
we're gonna find out. I'll mess it up if I say it. This difference of opinion later led to questions about why the students did not simply head west on their own. It's been explained that this can be attributed to military discipline. So,
Mm.
okay, we'll
Mm-hmm,
follow the
mm-hmm.
boss.
Yeah, no,
Is that a
100%.
cliff you're walking off, Chief? Yes, sir.
Let
All
me
right,
follow.
let's go.
Ow!
um, as the weather deteriorated, radio contact became intermittent, and it was believed that the 5 aircraft by this point were more than 200 nautical miles out to sea east of the Florida Peninsula.
Jesus Christ. So
Taylor
they
radioed
were like all the way to the Carolinas already, pretty much, and then like 200 miles out. You said Florida Panhandle.
Carolinas.
You said Florida
I,
Panhandle. 200 miles
yeah, east,
east. So if you go
east,
east, highlight,
out
but
over the ocean.
so that'd be the Gulf then. No,
Well,
east would be
no,
Atlantic,
that would be the Atlantic.
and
Yes.
it'd be Georgia then. Haha! I am smart today on only a few topics, but not the simple ones.
So, yeah, they
Shut up.
thought basically it seems as it's believed they were off the east coast of Florida. So Taylor radioed, "We'll fly 270 degrees west until landfall or running out of gas," and requested a weather check at 5:24 p.m. So, okay, Taylor made the call. We're going to go west now, which is good, but you're not going to get anywhere quickly. You got to backtrack all those miles you already went east first.
Mm.
Um, he said they'll basically head west till landfall or running out of gas, and requested a weather check. So by 5:50 p.m., several land-based radio stations had triangulated Flight 19's position as being within a 100 nautical mile radius of 29 degrees north, 79 degrees west. Flight 19 was north of the Bahamas and well off the coast of Central Florida. So they were out there.
Yeah. Okay.
At 6:04 p.m., Taylor radioed to his flight, holding 270. "We didn't fly far enough east. We may as well just turn around and fly east again." So, yes, I think that's a hand.
So stupid.
Well,
No, it wasn't a hand. It was a what the fuck hand. We didn't
yeah,
fly far enough east, so he still thinks he's in the fucking Gulf.
yeah, we didn't fly far enough east, so turn around, fly east again, because they're already going west now. So he's thinking, "Oh, we're going west. We definitely haven't seen anything. It's been a while. We're not on the East Coast. We're on the West Coast. We're in the Gulf, like you said." Seems to really be what he's thinking. So, I don't know exactly what this training area is, but I believe it
Yeah.
would put them kind of off the east, southeast, or something. I don't know. but somewhere
Pull up
off
a
the
map
East
of the
Coast.
area.
Well, where were we? Let's see what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Um,
I like picture books. Let's do this.
yeah. Yeah, I got Airstrip Fort Lauderdale. Okay. So they went out from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale. We'll look that up, and then what was their route of travel supposed to be from there? Heading 091 almost due east, so Fort Lauderdale. The fourth being returned to reaching Florida coast. After takeoff, they flew heading 091 almost due east. Okay, due east. Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale. Let's see what we got. Here's a
Let's
map
see.
of the area. Basically, right in the middle where all the red dots are. That's where we're looking at coming out of for these guys. So basically, due east. So that puts them north of the Bahamas, north of Nassau, into probably where they were going. I don't know if these are going to have the name we're looking for, but sounds like they were going way out here somewhere. There's Rockers Point. Looks like they're all going north. So they're already out over the east of Florida. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I'm really questioning now what this guy was thinking. Um, to think he's in the Gulf. They take off and they fly due east. Like, did anything ever happen while they were out there flying that would have given him the impression that they wound up on the opposite side of Florida? You know, it just seems odd.
Were they so far past the Bahamas that they just kept going back and forth and never just made too far of a zoom and just never made it back to like
I don't know. You know,
that's
so
interesting. Okay, did they ever find the wreckage like ever like
no,
later on? Never.
I
Okay.
don't believe so. You know what it kind of sounds like to me?
Hmm.
So we got these guys going without clocks. To me, I don't know how much of the story that plays because we hear of issues at Bermuda Triangle, right?
Mm-hmm.
There could be, it's most likely if there is something going on, some type of just earthly anomaly that's fucking
I
with
think
the
it's
instruments.
magnetic,
Right,
supposedly. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
now the compasses are going out, or at least in some of them, you know, I can
That
get
makes
that.
sense if it's a
Yeah,
magnetic issue because they're based on the Earth's
right.
magnetic waves. Yes. So
Now
that
the
makes
question would
sense.
be if that is happening or at certain times that's happening, and this happened to be one of those times. My question is, could magnetic interference like that play with the human body, the brain, and turn you around? Because there's nothing about this flight yet that tells me he should have thought they were in the Gulf of Mexico,
Yeah.
right? So to me, I'm kind of seeing that he's not even thinking clearly, or he thinks he's thinking clearly, but he's kind of just, you know, maybe something's playing around there. Just an earthly anomaly, magnetic fields. Who
Yeah,
knows?
because from the looks of it, like if you really zoom, like, I found, I'm sending you a picture. I found a pretty well drawn out like map of where the flight path was
Mm-hmm.
of Flight 19 and what the path that the flight might actually have taken.
Oh, okay.
And it looks like
Let's
they
pull that
like
up.
went up too far too soon, possibly.
Yeah.
And that's why
Oh,
they
wait.
saw just like the top of like small islands going back and forth because they were
Uh
literally
huh.
at the top of what would be like Treasure Cay Freeport, like
Mm-hmm.
that one.
Okay. Let's pull up the picture here.
Yeah.
Let's see these guys' flight route. There we go. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Okay. Wow, they really downscaled that map. Those islands look really close.
Yeah. But
Well, I thought Flight 19 might. Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seemed like in their bombing area somewhere out there.
Mhm. Yeah, but they flew too high too soon, and it looks like
Yeah.
they caught themselves just on the top of the one that shows like treasure. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. I'm looking at like
Huh.
a Google map of it comparatively. I totally get it, and also that is part of
Yeah.
like the Bermuda Triangle right there.
Right.
But yeah, so it could have been magnetic stuff because I mean, again, they had magnetic based instruments mainly.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's all like computer and GPS and satellite. So I'm that's probably why a lot of this doesn't happen anymore down there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
good thing.
yeah. I mean, I don't know.
That's what I would
Do
assume.
we know, do we even know that there really is some magnetic anomaly or something else going on there? Like, do we even know that as fact, right? So, I mean, I would think what you're saying, I can totally go with that. But here's the thing is like, wouldn't you expect that to happen more often if it was just because of training out over the ocean in the middle of nowhere? I mean, they were doing it on the Pacific coast then as well.
Mm,
They're stationed all around. They're doing it out there. They're flying off a carrier strip this big in an ocean, a gazillion times its size. Aircraft carries a needle in a haystack, and they're out there in the middle of the Pacific flying off the aircraft carrier, going around doing whatever and coming
mm,
back. And they're having no issues you know
mm.
so I would go with that, but it's like, well, this is really the only group this happened to. Nobody else had a problem you know
Mm.
I don't know. I'm curious about this magnetic anomaly, or
That's
whatever
just
should be going on out
that's just an
there.
opinion.
Yeah,
That's
well, no, yeah, I
because
mean
I've
that.
seen like magnetic like fields on like because I guess supposedly there's like magnetic cross fields like here like on land, and it causes
Right,
like
is that the ley lines?
huh?
Is that the ley lines they
I
call them?
I think so, and it's where like the compass can't like point
Mm-hmm.
north because I've seen stuff like that here on like land. So who's to say it would
Well,
can't happen over the sea?
you
I
look
don't
at a
know.
lot of things that were done throughout history, Egyptians, possibly
Mm,
the Native Americans, and some of the things that were built right on those things. So they had
mm,
knowledge of ley lines, or these lines, these magnetic lines or whatever, going back and forth and where they cross and stuff. And there's very key spots, and they seem to have built stuff at these key spots, which is
mhm.
interesting. It almost hints to them having technology back then that we don't know yet that they had.
It's almost like
Something,
there was a helping hand.
or a previous civilization that was wiped out by some cataclysmic event. They had built them, and they had got to a technological level of approximately where we're at,
Mm, mm.
right?
Yeah.
And then they build the pyramids, do all this stuff because it's cool. Maybe they're building a Las Vegas out there, and 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 boom, something happens. They're wiped out, and now however much later, how many more years down the road it takes, and people come in. You get Egypt, the Egyptians, and all that, and everyone thinks they built them. You know, I'm just saying, I think you could make a slight argument for there might have been some technology back then that we don't know had existed yet.
Oh, I 100% believe that.
I'm not
We're
saying alien either.
Oh no, I know. I know. I have felt this way for a very very long time. Like the fact
It
that
makes sense.
yeah, the fact that we're still unearthing like Roman settlements in areas that we didn't know Romans even had settled in the first place, and
Yeah.
we're discovering more and more ancient Egyptian stuff. It is amazing what we're still uncovering in the archaeology world. That is a rant for another day. You could get me going for a while on that,
That'll be your
but
show.
no. But yeah, we're still learning about even ourselves like a
Yeah.
1,000 years ago.
I don't think we've dug deep enough. I think we need to dig deeper than what we're finding.
I mean, look how far down we're finding like Roman stuff. Like let's go deeper. Like
Yeah.
we've obviously moved a whole bunch of earth to cover things up.
Yeah.
Um Oh God, where is it? There's a church in England where there's so many plague victims that are buried there that the
Yeah.
ground was raised up like 6 feet, and there's like steps going down into the church, and they
Huh.
intentionally made the steps going down to honor all of the people who were buried in this tiny little plot of land. There's
Right.
just people, like headstones probably don't even exist for like the layers that are gone now. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it doesn't surprise me, and
Th-
I agree. We probably just need to go deeper,
I
and
think we need to go deeper. I think we're going to
just
find
amazing.
a civilization we never knew existed.
I mean, we're just finding out like genetically about the Dedovans and the Homo sapiens and the Neanderthals all interbreeding. Like they're finding more and more genetic evidence of that.
Yeah.
So like, you know,
Yeah.
ah, again, another
uh,
rant. Shut me
yeah.
up and just keep going.
All right. Well, so again, we stopped at where Taylor said, we'll just turn around and fly east again. So by that time, the weather had deteriorated even more and the sun had set. Around 6:20 p.m., Taylor's
Wait.
last huh.
Okay, never mind. I was gonna say if the sun has set, but it's the whole land issue.
Yeah,
Continue.
now
I'm
the sun is
sorry.
set. So
Now you're
around
flying at night
6:20,
blind.
yeah. Well, stars maybe. Around 6:20 p.m., Taylor's last message was received. It has also been reported that Taylor's last message was received at 7:04. That's a big time gap, 6:20 to 7:04.
Hmm.
So he was heard saying, "All planes close up tight. We'll have to ditch unless landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons or 38 liters, we all go down together." Which makes sense because if you're going to have any chance of survival, you're better in a group there, possibly, than in your own in the middle of the water. Bigger group, better chance you're going to be seen, you know? So, as it became obvious the flight was lost, air bases, aircraft, and merchant ships were alerted. A consolidated PBY Catalina, it's a plane, departed, I believe a plane, departed after 6 p.m. to search for Flight 19 and guide them back if they could be located. After dark, two Martin PBM Mariner flying boats, originally scheduled for their own training flights, were diverted to perform square pattern searches in the area west of 29 degrees north, 79 degrees west. U.S. Navy Squadron Training Number 49, PBM 5 BUNO 59225, took off at 7:27 p.m. from Naval Air Station Banana River, which is now Patrick Space Force Base. Called in a routine radio message at 7:30 p.m. and was never heard from again. So the PBM search plane we looked at the beginning here, that was a plane these guys were flying, and they diverted to go out there and look, and they were AWOL
Disappeared as
after
well.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they decided to go live forever in Bahamas too. So at 9:15 p.m., the tanker SS Gaines Mills reported it had observed flames from an apparent explosion leaping 100 feet high and burning for 10 minutes at position 28.59 north, 80.25 west. Captain Shona Stanley reported unsuccessfully searching for survivors through a pool of oil and aviation gasoline. The escort carrier USS Solomons has reported losing radar contact with an aircraft at the same position and time. So at least they know where this one plane went down, the search plane. Not that that matters and takes away from some of the mystery around that plane. However, what the hell happened? This thing all of a sudden just blew up or crashed? Kind of interesting.
I mean,
Yeah?
yeah. I mean,
Conspiracy?
just no. I just recently learned about the TWA flight in 1994, in which the fuselage blew up and essentially killed literally everybody on it, and like
Yeah.
changed a lot in how the FFA or FAA wrong group
Yeah.
uh, operate. I mean, they're like, well, actually, it was a flight in 1989 that changed a bunch of all of that, but that one helped as well. So that's just like the only thing that I'm thinking about. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, the fact that it happened in hand with this other situation is kind of like, but
Yeah, right. Right.
it's still a thing that
It
very well
happens. Yeah.
possibly could have happened.
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah. So the investigation, there was a 500-page Navy board investigation report published a few months later that made several observations. So first, we have flight leader Lieutenant Charles Taylor had mistakenly believed that the small islands he passed over were the Florida Keys, that his flight was over the Gulf of Mexico, and that heading northeast would take them to Florida. It was determined that Taylor had passed over the Bahamas as scheduled, and he did, in fact, lead his flight to the northeast over the Atlantic. The report noted that some subordinate officers did likely know their approximate position, as indicated by the radio transmissions stating that flying west would result in reaching the mainland. Boom, boom, boom. Yes. So clearly, um, there's a good chance that at least one of the other pilots was aware or thought he was aware of the real position and the real way they should be flying. As noted in the report, Taylor refused to change the radio training frequency to the search and rescue frequency.
Because he wanted to
Um,
keep this group together.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the training frequency was difficult to use because of interference from Cuban radio stations and also a radio carrier wave. So
Well, maybe
could have
you guys
been
should have found a different freaking wavelength. Just saying, there's
right.
AM and FM. You probably would need FM though, because it's a farther transmission. But still,
No, I believe AM is.
really.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but still, like, there's so many different like available wavelengths. Like,
Mhm.
seriously, you couldn't just
Yep.
have like found another?
Yep.
That's
Well,
stupid.
Taylor was not at fault because the compasses stopped working.
Mm-hmm.
The loss of PBM 59225, so this is the search plane, was attributed to an explosion. Yeah, this report was subsequently amended, cause unknown, by the Navy after Taylor's mother contended that the Navy was unfairly blaming her son for the loss of 5 aircraft and 14 men when the Navy had neither the bodies nor the airplanes as evidence.
That's
True?
fair.
So it doesn't matter that they updated it to cause unknown. We know their official stance is explosion. Had Flight 19 actually been where Taylor believed it to be, the flight would have made landfall with the Florida coastline within 20 minutes. Oh, so close. Oh,
Dude.
you would think if they could just get a little higher, unless there was clouds. We don't know on the clouds thing, deteriorating weather.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean clouds, but most likely does. They could always get much higher if it's clear, at least while there was sunlight, and be able to look out. And if they're only 20 minutes out, they should be able to see land, I would think. Maybe not. 20 minutes out in an airplane, 20 minutes out for them is different than 20 minutes out for a commercial airliner today, because they're going between 400 to 500 miles an hour, whereas these guys, I don't know how fast the Avenger planes are, but my guess is no more than between 150 to 190, somewhere in there. So 20 minutes out for them is nowhere near. It's like a fourth to a fifth of a commercial airliner nowadays, just because of their speed, right?
Yeah.
So if they get high enough, they might be able to see land. I would argue they're probably not that far out at 20 minutes.
That's a shame. 20
it still is a
minutes.
good distance, but
Yeah, but
yeah,
20 minutes. Damn, dude.
yeah. Well, where should have been? So the Board of Investigation found that because of his dogmatic belief that he was on a base course toward Florida, Taylor actually guided the flight farther northeast and out to sea. Further, it was general knowledge at NAS Fort Lauderdale that if a pilot ever became lost in the area, to fly a heading of 270, which is due west. Likewise, a rule of thumb was that any pilot who got lost going south would simply turn his plane around with the sun on his port side or left and then follow the Florida coast heading north. By the time the flight actually turned west, they were likely so far out to sea that they had already passed their aircraft's fuel endurance, meaning they passed the point
Of no
where they would
return.
have just enough fuel to get home.
God damn, dude.
Yeah. So this factor, combined with bad weather and the ditching characteristics of the Avenger, meant that there was little hope of rescue, even if they had managed to stay afloat. It is possible that Taylor overshot Gorda Cay and instead reached another landmass in the southern Abaco Islands. He then proceeded northwest as planned. He fully expected to find the Grand Bahama Island lying in front of him, as expected. Instead, he eventually saw a landmass to his right side, the northern part of Abaco Island. Believing that his landmass to his right was Grand Bahama Island and his compass was malfunctioning, he set a course to what he thought was southwest to head straight back to Fort Lauderdale. So now that makes sense, seeing on the map where the Bahamas are. Going a southwest direction for him should have hit land. However, in reality, this change of course further northwest towards open ocean changes course. So, to further add to his confusion, he encountered a series of islands north of Abaco Island, which looked very similar to Key West Islands. The control tower then suggested that Taylor's team should fly west, which would have taken them to the landmass of Florida eventually. Taylor headed for what he thought was west, but in reality it was northwest, almost parallel to Florida. Ah, so close, right there off my left. I can't see it. Man. After trying that for a while and with no land in sight, Taylor decided that it was impossible for them to fly so far west and not reach Florida. He believed that he might have been near the Key West Islands. What followed was a series of serious conversations between Taylor, his other aircrew, and the control tower. Taylor was not sure whether he was near the Bahamas or Key West, and he was not sure which direction he faced because of the compass malfunction. The control tower informed Taylor that he could not be in Key West since the wind that day did not blow that way. Some of the aircrew believed that their compass was working. Taylor then set a course northeast according to their compass, which should take them to Florida if they were in Key West. When that failed, Taylor set a course west according to their compass, which should have taken them to Florida if they were in the Bahamas. If Taylor had stayed on this course, he would have reached land before running out of fuel. However, at some point, Taylor decided that he had tried going west enough. That's that part we read where he's like, shit, let's go east. We've been going west too long. We should turn around and go east. So, I mean, that just that alone, if you're out there and you're lost, right? Middle of the ocean, right by Florida though, and
That's a shame.
you're
Man.
you go east for a long time and you're like, guys, this is probably the wrong direction. Let's go west. So do a 180 and go west. You're not covering any ground. All you're doing is backtracking until you hit where you had started from. Then you're making
you
ground,
start. Yeah.
right? So they probably didn't go too much farther than where they had made the turn east. So now they're going west. It's like, we've been going west way too long. We should have hit land. Let's turn around and go east again. Now you're backtracking both of those tracks until you hit the farthest point east where you left off and turned back around. You're essentially searching nothing. You're not going to see land because you didn't see it the whole time on that same exact route. Now you're going to do it a third time. So,
what's the definition of insanity?
Well, he might not be thinking clearly.
I know.
Or,
I've just,
you also got a lot.
Joke.
You have a lot on your mind, I would assume, if you're in a situation like this and those types
panic.
of planes. So it's like, we've been going west too long. Let's go back east. And you might not be thinking about, well, shit, how far did we come this way? We got to backtrack that Do we have enough fuel to make that? How much fuel do we have once we hit that point? And probably not
Mm-hmm.
thinking about some of that. So he then once again set a course northeast, thinking they were near Key West after all. Finally, his flight ran out of fuel and may have crashed into the ocean somewhere north of Abaco Island and east of Florida. In 1991, a treasure hunting expedition led by Graham Hawkes announced that the wreckage of 5 Avengers had been discovered off the coast of Florida. But their tail numbers revealed they were not Flight 19. In 2004, a BBC documentary showed Hawks returning with a new submersible 12 years later and identifying one of the planes by its bureau number, a clearly readable 23990, as a flight lost at sea on October 9th, 1943. So, not the Avengers, over 2 years before Flight 19. Its crew all survived, but he was unable to definitively identify the other planes.
Mm-hmm.
The documentary concluded that, quote, despite the odds, they are just a random collection of accidents that came to rest in the same place 12 miles from home. So that's kind of interesting. Here they have, like, we don't have another, you have this other flight. How many aircraft were in this?
5?
Flight lost. Oh, it just says a flight lost at sea October 19th, that one that was 2 years before Flight 19. So we don't know how many planes were in that. But, he's found these other planes, and it just so happens 5 of them kind of grouped together all in the same spot, 12 miles out in the ocean. Kind of interesting. But we'd have to take a look at the area at that time
Yeah.
and see exactly how many aircraft were flying around there, and if how many of these accidents happened in the general vicinity of each other. As of the 2020s, no trace of the 5 TBM Avengers or the PBM Mariner and the 27 missing aviators have been found. The most likely conclusion is that TBMs ran out of gas and ditched at sea, and the PBM had a mid-air explosion. So, there's been a lot of controversy around Flight 19, in the past, and we'll just say theories. And you look at it and you say, well, probably not too odd, right? When they took off, they apparently had no clocks on board. That's interesting. None of the 5. And the way they're going to be traveling, they need time. They need clocks.
But we're just
They
going to
have to have
assume
it.
that they have their own watch.
Right. So we don't know if they even had their watches on. My guess is they did, but then again, who the hell knows? So to me, it's not too hard to think that they would have gone missing, got lost, and
Yeah.
had a ditch, right? But then you have this damn search aircraft hours later going out, and they go out and they're just never heard from again. They're just gone. Which they found it, but what are the chances?
I mean, pretty slim, but there's still that chance.
Right.
So it just
you're out in the
happened to be that
Bermuda
time.
Triangle, and now this guy heading up Flight 19, he's experienced. He had over 2,500 hours. He's an instructor. He's seen combat or whatever he did out in the Pacific, training or whatever. He knows what he's doing. These were the planes of the time. This was the technology of the time, what they had in those planes, which wasn't anything compared to today. They had to have practiced without clocks, I would think, maybe without a compass. What do we do out in the middle of the ocean? I would think they've practiced some of that, but he sounds really experienced. And, military personnel, part of the deal with their training is to see and do everything they can through that training. That way, when you're going into battle and there is bullets firing, you're not as amped up as you would be if it was you didn't have the training, or it's your first time. You would think this guy is probably pretty calm, and given the situation, he's got to keep the team together, and so he doesn't want to panic or anything either. And you think he was, I'm sure, level-headed enough to figure out we went west when we left. Or I'm sorry, west. We went due east when we left
Mhm.
for however many miles out. Like, there's no way we could be in the Gulf, you know? It's just
Yeah.
really hard to think that he was thinking like that. But then again, they were having compass issues, so that didn't help. You
Mm-mm.
know, they would have possibly hit land had
The compass
it kind of,
worked.
yeah, it kind of tells me that this other guy's compass wasn't working correctly, you know?
Hmm.
You know, from saying, yeah, let's do this, but you know, who knows? Who the hell knows?
I sure don't.
I don't know. What do you think, Stevie? That's the end of the story. Well, you know what? Hang on. So I there's one more story to go with this. This is just something I've come across in the past. I have searched for the last year or so, and I cannot find this again. And I think it was a video. Um, it could have been something from History Channel, guys. So this the show, this video I was watching, I remember they talked about Flight 19, and what had happened was, and I don't know where this took place. I don't recall, and if this was a military airfield or not. But there was some little airstrip out somewhere. You know, I what I remember is seeing on the video that it was like possibly out in the country somewhere. I don't know, but there's this little airstrip somewhere, and these people reported allegedly that they heard, and I think this is probably more modern day. They heard some god awful noise in the air up in the sky, um, and not necessarily god awful, but it was this
Mm.
type of plane sound, right, where you have just this open engine, just rum 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 rum
Yeah.
rum. These things are loud, man. Um, they heard that and they looked up, and coming through the clouds up over the airfield is what looked like these 5 aircraft,
Why
these
do I
Avengers.
recall hearing
I
about that?
I might have mentioned it once to you
I
in the
think you
past. I
did.
could be wrong, but I know it wasn't in depth. But
No.
I saw a video on this, and I cannot find this stuff, and I'm still looking. If I find it, we'll bring it up. But
Yeah.
some people said that they witnessed 5 aircraft that looked like these come out of the clouds up there. So now people are thinking time travel, portals, all this stuff surrounding this. But you know, we're talking about the Bermuda Triangle, and there's a
Mm.
lot of, you know. Here's the thing: you could say, "Oh, yeah, Bermuda Triangle BS," blah 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 blah. But you got to remember, if people were just making this shit up, you wouldn't just have Bermuda Triangle. You'd have something in the Gulf. You'd have something in the Pacific Ocean. You'd have something everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, people would be making this shit up everywhere. There's some truth behind it
Mm.
as to what it really is going on. Who knows if there is anything going on? But there is a lot lost out there. And you got to remember, you have flights going from anywhere in the United States, but especially California area in the western states,
Mm.
out to Hawaii
Oh
daily.
yeah.
I guarantee if you pull up Flight Radar 24 right now on your phone and zoom in to so you can
Oh
see
yeah.
between California and Hawaii,
There's probably so many
what you're going to see is
flights.
a string of
Mhm.
aircraft, just a line of aircraft coming to California and a line on the other side of them going to Hawaii, like
Mhm.
right now. And it's 9:30 at night. Maybe not as many aircraft, but still a bunch.
Mm.
I was looking at it the other day. I was like, oh, Jesus, there's that many flights flying right now. And that's kind of nice to know, because when you're out there and you're flying to Hawaii or back from Hawaii, it's kind of nice to know that the next commercial airliner behind you isn't that far behind. So if something did happen and
Right.
you went down and
Right.
control knew you went down, they would let them know, guaranteed. I've heard of this happening.
Yeah.
Say, look out for this plane. It's in the water somewhere, you know.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, there. At a major airport, a plane takes off and lands every 30 seconds, and there's multiple runways. So the fact, like, that doesn't surprise me that there's like a literal like train of planes going to
right,
and from particular places like that, especially like LAX, like, you know. But
right.
yeah, I mean, good thing for that.
So, what do you think about Flight 19?
I think it's sad. Like everything is a red flag on it.
Yeah.
Everything's a red fucking flag on it. They're north of those little islands somewhere out there, but
Yeah, and it's probably very hard
mm-hmm.
to determine a lot of those islands what they really are.
Yeah.
You know, unless there's actually some decent sized structures on there that you can easily reference. But without that, you're screwed. You know.
Thank goodness for modern technology in aviation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helps. Would have helped Flight 19 and would have helped Amelia Earhart.
Yeah, would have helped a couple of other more recent flights as well.
Yeah. So, the biggest question is this part of the Bermuda Triangle mystery, or was it much less severe? This is just them losing track of where they were because they didn't have clocks and ultimately their compasses didn't work.
I feel like it was a combination of both. The reason they fell into the trap of the Bermuda Triangle was because of the red flags and mishaps leading up to that point, where quite possibly a magnetic wave, like, a ley line, if you will, fucked all their shit up even further and just caused the issue. But
you know what's
I
interesting?
think it was a combination of things. Yeah.
You know what's interesting? They were able to do the first however many chunks of the flight without issue, and that's flying out to the ocean to find these little islands, get there, go do your bombing stuff, fly to the next one, and then go home. Like they had already done the first leg or first few legs without any issue as far as clocks and all that stuff. So, it's interesting. I think there's a couple red flags, a couple questionable things going on here, and not as to why they got lost. Obviously, there's some red flags that came up before the flight, but there's some oddities to this one for me. And I'm telling you, if I find this video or this article, whatever it was, about these people seeing it, we'll do a quickie on that. Because
gonna have me looking for it now too.
Yeah. I can't even remember where I saw that or read that, but I remember the details of it like it was that pronounced. So, I'm pretty sure it was a video, but that's it for tonight. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe if you don't mind. But very important, if you have a obscure story of your own, maybe you have a relative who knew one of these guys, and maybe have some info, knew someone else that was investigating this and has some info, or you've seen a ghost, Bigfoot, aliens, UFOs. We've all seen them now. Shoot us an email at obscuredr1@gmail.com. obscured1@gmail. Type story in the subject line. Tell us your story. We'll share it on here for you, anonymously or not. You can be on the show if you want. Just let us know in the email. You can do so anonymously or not. Up to you. We'll have a drink and have a chat about your story. We have our own, so don't be shy. With that said, we're going to go search for videos and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check back with us often for new episodes. Feel free to drop a comment and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Obscured Reality.